Welcome everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Dayna Mallow, CEO of Live Art International. Dayna started Live Art 6 years ago as a live art experiential agency that manages artists and develops art engagement products for events. Fun fact, I was actually a client of hers before she was a client of mine. We used her services for years through a charity that I started with some friends called One for the Kids. Not only did they elevate our events, they also helped us raise a lot more money for the kids. Dayna has put together a fantastic group of experts for you to hear from today. Please enjoy corporate and not-for-profit fundraising. Create community impact with your next event.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dayna Mallow, and I am the CEO and owner of Live Art International. Here at Live Art, we book and manage live performance artists and live art engagement products. Our primary market is nonprofit organizations. We work with those nationwide, and we have raised over $5 million for charities to support their programs and missions. Our nonprofit clients have been hit hard by the current health crisis, and it's estimated that 40% will be forced to close their doors due to the pandemic. Most affected will be smaller and mid-sized nonprofit organizations that are reliant on individual donors and events to support their programs. On the flip side, there is some good news. With 7 in 10 US corporate funders increasing giving during COVID-19. So how do we as a community of vendors, event planners, and event specialists connect these two communities? Can we build a bridge between the small and mid-sized companies and the small and mid-sized nonprofit organizations? Our panel of experts here today are here to share their knowledge and experience because they think that we can. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, starting with Meggan Hill-McQueeney.
Hello, my name is Meggan, and I am the President and COO for Bravehearts. We are a therapeutic equine program. We're the largest one in the country that services United States military veterans. We do it with 2 full-time accredited farms. We're a 501c3, and we serve veterans from across the country, as well as children and adults with various special needs come out to our farms and find how healing our horses are.
Thanks for being here today, Meggan.
Thank you, Dayna.
No, it's my pleasure. We're going to pass it on to Rosemary. Hello, Rosemary. How are you?
Hi, Dayna. I'm good. Thank you. And thank you for having me. It's an honor to be part of this panel. So my name is Rosemary Matzl, and I'm the Vice President of Community Affairs for ITW. ITW is a global industrial manufacturing organization that's quite diverse with about 45,000 employees around the world.
Thanks for being here, Rosemary. Hi, Dave. Please tell us about yourself.
Sure. Hi, Dayna. Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Wille. I'm the co-owner and founder of AMS Chicago. We do fundraising consulting. So we work right now with about 300 charities a year, at least in a typical year. This is an atypical year. We were 14 years in existence. We provide free fundraising, consulting, and networking to charities to help them find the right resources. And as part of that, we provide unique sports and entertainment items, as well as local experiences and getaways on a consignment basis. We're here in Chicago. We also have a studio in St. Louis, Kansas City, and Scottsdale. And happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Hello to Monika Lotter.
Hey there, Dayna. Thanks for including me in the conversation. So I created Monika the Events back in 2013, really to be the right hand of many of these small organizations that are always challenged because of such a small staff that they just don't have the bandwidth to plan a large gala or fundraising event. So I truly find it very rewarding to help these organizations get to the point where they want to in fundraising. I've had the opportunity to help organizations create their very first gala and then work with them in concurrent years to really see the fruits of our labor come to fruition. So I have chosen to focus my event planning experience that stems across the board on nonprofits because I really want to make a difference and want to enjoy working with these people who, these staff who really have this passion for their causes.
Thanks, Monika. And last but not least, hello, Brandon Stec. Thanks for being here.
Hey there, thanks for having me. I am Brandon Stec. I'm Director of Marketing for GiveSmart by Community Brands. We provide mobile and event fundraising technology for nonprofits across the country. We work with about 5,000 nonprofits coast to coast and in Canada, helping them from everything to their large gala to their annual planning and the different events throughout the year. So since really we started, we've raised about $3.5 billion for nonprofits and are really excited about the things we're seeing right now as more and more organizations are going virtual, going mobile, and really finding a way to get through all this craziness. So I'm excited to have the conversation today and share some ideas.
We're excited to hear those ideas. So to kick us off today, we're going to start with our nonprofit voice. Meggan, can you tell us a bit about how the pandemic has affected Bravehearts and how you've had to pivot?
You bet. We felt the direct hit immediately when COVID took full effect there in the middle of March. Both of our full-time horse farms had to be closed to protect the safety of our communities. We typically have about 700 volunteers. We service about 100 participants a day, and we overnight had to close things down. We still have to continue to keep our farms operating and our horses fed. And so we lost all of our volunteer support. That was a big hit for us. Second of all, a lot of our grants and deadlines, fundraisers that we had on the docket for the calendar 2020 were wiped clean. A lot of our events that we host, like Special Olympics for Illinois, the Equestrian Games, our Trail to Zero rides, all also had to be canceled. And then finally, what we really had learned was that deadlines for our grants all changed. So it was like moving targets. We didn't know what to write for, we didn't know what to fundraise for, but the one thing that persisted was the need of our community. So even though our farms were shut down, we found out that the people that needed our farms most during COVID, those people that are suffering, dealing with depression, anxiety, PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, and so forth, needed support more so now than ever. So within 48 hours, we were already starting to pivot and roll out our virtual programs, and we created over 40 virtual programs in a week. And we started to do those every day, multiple times a day, to support our veterans and our children and adults in significant need.
Yeah, your story was so inspiring when we had our first initial conversation. I'm so glad you are a part of this, because you guys had put forth such effort to really change up in such a quick time period. I know you have a big event coming up. Do you want to tell us a bit about it? Because it's very interesting.
Yeah, we do. Every year here for the last 4 years, we've done a 20-mile horse ride for military suicide prevention and awareness. We lose 20 veterans in the United States every day to suicide. And veterans who come to our farms find healing, they find solace, they find comfort, they find purpose to start their lives again from the horses and from the community that there is at Bravehearts. So we have done these 20-mile rides through downtown Chicago, right down Michigan Avenue. We've done them through Times Square and Central Park, right through New York City. We've done them through Washington, D.C., right in front of the White House. And these events that typically take place in major cities, obviously due to COVID and the pandemic, we can't do those. And normally we're in front of 50, 100,000 people in a ride. We can't do that. So this year we have, again, pivoted that. We will still do 20 veterans. We're riding 20 miles in 2020 on a private horse farm, and then we'll blow that up virtually. So we're really looking to remarket, rebrand, and still create a much broader audience, not limiting ourselves to the major cities like New York City, Chicago, and Washington, D.C., but really trying to think about spreading our reach across the country, Dayna.
Well, thank you for all that you do every day, and to you and your staff and your horses. I want to switch and pivot to Rosemary, because we talk a lot about breaking the corporate code. We're gonna come back to that. But Rosemary, first and foremost, I'm interested to hear what impact has COVID had on your strategic giving and outreach?
Sure. So in terms of ITW's giving, I mean, it's completely tied to our values as an organization. And I would say during a pandemic like this, which originally started in China, where we have a large presence as well, ITW just stepped it up, you know. So in terms of my work, all of our grants, our pledges stayed the same. We have a large budget for sponsorship, which supports a lot of events that did not occur. And we kept true to our sponsorships and allowed all of our not-for-profits to convert that all over to general operating. We have a very generous matching gift program where employees can give up to $5,000 to various charities of their choices, and we match it by 3. And I've got to say, the spirit of our employees and the increase in that benefit during this time was significant. We also have employee resource groups, and it was our African American group that initially partnered with the Urban League, you know, seeing the disparity of how this virus impacted certain communities. And they put out a campaign, and that was to leverage the matching gift program across 4 markets across the United States. And collectively, within a 6-week period of time, they raised $300,000 for the Urban League. So in addition to the giving, there's also a lot of individuals that are also volunteering, using business skills to help small businesses, for example, in those communities, reopen. We also have a high school called the ITW David Spear Academy, which is on the west side of Chicago, in a zip code that was most hard hit of any zip code in the city of Chicago, with multiple whole families diagnosed with COVID. So we also stepped it up as an organization to make a lump sum grant to help those families during that time with job loss, rent, medical, and so forth. And it was our women's employee resource group that did a very similar drive over the course of 3 weeks and raised over $100,000 for the ITW David Spear Academy. Outside of that, we worked with J.B. Pritzker and made a contribution to the state fund. We also did with Lori Lightfoot to the city fund. And then most recently made a $2 million commitment to Chicago Connect to help bring the internet into all these zip codes where children and students are going back virtually but don't have internet access. So I'm really proud to work for ITW, and from our leadership down, the support has just been to step it up. You know, we've got to be here and listen to what the needs are of the community and respond appropriately.
Oh, go ahead, Dave, please.
If I can just jump in, because ITW, as Rosemary said, has really stepped it up, but as a company, they've always stepped it up. We've been fortunate to work with a number of charities, and then where the event was actually in sponsorship through ITW, or others where ITW employees have been at different events. And just the strategic nature of what they're doing. I mean, they're all focused on things that mean something to them. And so the support they get from ITW really helps them with charities that are meaningful and touching their heart. So it's just neat to see that with ITW. I know there's other companies that do that as well, but the things Rosemary said, you know, while they've stepped it up, I think they've always been a step up in the corporate world, at least what I've seen.
Thank you, Dave.
That's great. And I was going to bring us back to kind of boots on the ground local. And it's great to hear that ITW is in the community, actually in Chicago, and making a difference by connecting with charities on the ground. I want to kind of connect these two elements of the nonprofit in the corporate, because part of what I see our goal here, because in terms of who our audience is, that we have this opportunity of being in the event business, the event industry, as vendors, as event planners, as venues, across the gamut of changing the conversation and trying to be ambassadors of hope or ambassadors of giving as we integrate these two partners to make an impact. Monika Lotter is an expert at this, and I have been on many a call with her where I have listened to her weave that element into a conversation with the charitable client, or on the flip side, bring in that sponsorship conversation on the corporate side. So Monika, I'm interested to hear your input and what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, of course, of course. You know, I come from a very varied background in both event planning, but have also worked for the city and for corporations and hospitality. So I've kind of seen it all. And what I have found is that really in the corporate arena, there is that wish to connect with an organization, to utilize their social responsibility arms. And, you know, we all love a warm fuzzy. So how amazing is it when a for-profit company can actually make a difference? And I do want to touch on what both Rosemary and Meggan talked about with regards to, you know, working with nonprofits and corporations. Many of the smaller to medium-sized ones that I'm working with have the same issues, right? You know, they had a huge volunteer pool, many of which are large groups that come from these corporations. So they are missing out on the opportunity to share their mission and, you know, connect with people to speak on their cause and to assist. So this is something that is really affecting and will be a trickle-down effect, unfortunately. You know, right now our goal is in working with these corporations and sponsors is educating them that it is no longer the opportunity that they're going to be getting that VIP placement, table seating, you know, special guest passes or an added swag bag at the event, but rather it is brainstorming with them and, you know, with these nonprofit organizations and having that conversation on what does sponsorship look like? How can we do this? And many of them are turning toward mini virtual events or some sort of an engagement to keep them engaged while we're in this phase. Now, ideally, we're hoping that this is something that will continue even when it is deemed safe and appropriate for us to gather again. But it's still that need for many organizations who are missing out on a full year of seeing their sponsors and or getting their benefactors in front of them that they need to continue to engage. And on the flip side, you know, there is worry now about some organizations that will there be a giving fatigue is what one of my clients told me about. You know, now everybody is jumping on the bandwagon where they can, how they can, in supporting organizations or companies as everybody's struggling through this. So there is some concern that what happens in 2021 when they start asking for donations again.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot to unpack. I mean, it's a very dire situation. You talk about connect. One of the best connectors that I know of is Dave Wille. And Dave comes from a perspective of this from, you know, the auction side, from the fundraising side. So Dave, I'd love for you to share your thoughts. And then I do have I want to hear from Brandon and then have some follow-up questions to get us going. Dave?
Sure. You know, a couple things. One of them is this connection we're talking about between corporate and the fundraising side of the charity side. I actually have 25 years in corporate, some of that with Rosemary. So we were able to do some fun things together that way. What's different now is moving that all, what I would say, to the local and smaller business side of things. So some of what we're seeing is a connection between some of the local restaurants and how can they help support, for example, some of the charities by offering a bourbon and beer tour and tasting, which is a great offering for that charity to help raise money, but it also brings new people together for that establishment. And we're seeing those sort of things, or in-home wine tasting or virtual wine tasting, but it's really reaching out to some of those smaller groups in the community and making that connection. And they're basically just want somebody to ask. One of the ones we did just actually before COVID hit was a neat mixology mash. And now every charity wants to do something like that. And the big question they were asking is, can we do it safely? And that is the thing. The bars, the restaurants, they're finding ways to do it safely, at least now where you have some of the nicer weather and such like that. But that's one of the biggest challenges that they have, is to continue to be relevant during that time. But we're also finding some of the groups, organizations themselves doing things differently. Many of the charities we work with have boards of people who are from various different corporate settings. A neat one we just worked with, Onward Neighborhood House, said they can't do, for them, they cannot do some of the gatherings, even some of the virtual kind of gatherings. But they asked their board members to each do their own small thing with 10 or 20 of their friends. We just finished one last weekend, and they made $8,000, that one group. And they have 8 to 10 people on their board. If they could each do that, they're going to, keep that message going. And so it's not just the fundraising, but it's getting that message out there so that we don't lose contact with people.
Exactly, Dave. And I think what you're, talking about is something that we've heard all throughout all this, is that we're gathering together apart. And, now that we have been able to get smaller groups together, there are ways to engage smaller groups and the many.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Well, that's a great point too, of you're expanding your reach. Oftentimes you have people outside of your local community that can't make it to your gala every year, but they want to support you. So being able to engage them in these many different ways allows them to maybe win a silent auction item for the first time, or participate in a raffle that they never could have participated in because you were live. So this allows you to expand your reach and also expand beyond just that one person. It's now second, third degree expansion, because people are sharing more often than not, hey, I'm attending this, check it out. I have a friend of a friend who sent us an email that said, hey, we're going to this event. We were interested. We went because we were intrigued by it, and we would have never heard about it beforehand. So that reach and that expansion is really, we're seeing success with organizations even as big as like the Ronald McDonald Houses of the world, where they're increasing their donor base tenfold by doing these types of events, because they're thinking outside of that realm of who's in the area, but more who's in our network.
And Brandon, you have one of the best tools on the market to do that. We're big fans of GiveSmart. And I do want to point out that one of the things I really appreciate about GiveSmart and Community Brands is the amount of education that you're pushing out, and the webinars. If there's any nonprofits out there, even if you are customers of another organization, jump on board with what GiveSmart is doing, because it's pretty phenomenal from the different angles that you're taking. And I want to give you a chance to talk about GiveSmart and the impact COVID has had on your business, and what you're doing in terms of addressing the needs of your nonprofit clients.
No, and thank you for that. I mean, we really take pride in what we're trying to do of sharing stories. Regardless of what tool you're using, every nonprofit is looking to find a solution and solve for something. And every week we're doing a webinar, and it's long weeks sometimes, but we're trying to put together as much content as possible to really share the success stories and reiterate, you can do this and there are ways, just like Meggan is figuring out for her organization. GiveSmart, we haven't sent a team member to an event since this started, which is a huge change in our business. But we've still been able to raise a lot of money for organizations that have been able to surpass their goals, because now it's more about the net rather than just how much you total raised. It's, are you creating a difference in that, how much you spent versus how much you raised? Like I mentioned, Ronald McDonald House Charities here in Chicago had a very successful virtual gala that they told a story about with us a few weeks ago. And we do these outside the room webinars to share these stories. Every week we've had these for, I think we're on 19 total episodes, 13 booked so far for this one. So we're trying to get that story out there, because there's so many different things you can do. So with technology, it's always changing. We provide a platform that allows you to fundraise from anyone, anywhere, and really expand your reach and expand your story, but also make it easy for the donor. This day and age, people are getting hammered by emails. I think I've gotten 30 in the 10 minutes I've sat here, and that's just how it is, right?
Five of them are probably from me, so I'm sorry.
But I saved those, but we got to differentiate our message, right? Text message is one way to do that, but also in the different ways we're seeing people utilize video, utilize different messaging on their event sites, and just really standing out. I mean, we're seeing things that are just amazing, like virtual bartender events that, last year they did the same event live, and they raised 5% of what they raised this year going virtual. It was just an incredible story. So we're really excited about what we're seeing. There's a lot of ideas out there, and fundraisers truly are fueling that. We're just being the avenue and trying to share as much as we can and be a resource. We see a lot of things. We try to pull it all together, make sense of it, and try and help for the next time, because obviously we all are learning in this new world. But
hey, Brandon, I mean, I want to chime in on that. Actually, just today, an auction was launched by Meals on Wheels, who I've had the pleasure of working with for the last few years, and planning their celebrity chef ball, which unfortunately due to COVID had to be canceled. So they are missing out on their biggest fundraiser, but they have been they've been working with GiveSmart for years, and what it has enabled them to do on a short-term basis, and I think this is what I'm seeing also with these organizations, they just don't have the bandwidth to do the research and plan some of these events, because they are, as Rosemary mentioned, writing, and Meggan, writing grants and trying to do this, and those are ever-changing timelines. But if you can give them the resource, those tools to be able to do a live auction or a silent auction or a virtual wine tasting that they're doing, or even a trivia event, some of those things are great. And then you add in the text to give function. There are just really simple ways that organizations can do these sort of mini events throughout without a lot of effort. And you guys do provide that support, which is great. And I think that when we look at this 40% that Dayna mentioned, these small to medium-sized organizations, they're looking for cash, and a lot of people are not doing that. In the case of Meals on Wheels, a lot of corporate, the reason why they're able to host these events is because they have product that's coming to them in kind, whether it's a donated wine tasting or food product that actually is going to help feed these seniors and balance costs off. That I love what ITW is doing, Rosemary, and that all that these organizations need is a little mention, that, hey, pick a charity of your choice, make a donation, and have the company match it. I mean, there's something so easy to be done here, and it's really, it's time to let your causes show. So if there is a passion project that your organization has, or you as an event planner can match together with a client event, and I've even done weddings where there have been donations, then now's the time to do it, because this is really an area where people can use it.
yeah, we call those champions. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over everyone there, but we call those champions. Those are people who are out there for your cause. If you have someone who's been supporting you, can't do a live event, there is this peer-to-peer component that's out there to allow them to be a fundraiser on your behalf. Embrace that. We have customers that are now using that pretty much every day. They're finding it as a new feature of just something to jump in and say, oh, I've got the IT department over at, I'm making this up, at ITW is a huge supporter of ours. So they want to run a fundraiser. Well, we have this easy way to do that, and you can bring all the funds in one place. We're seeing that creativity of reaching out and embracing those causes. It's, let your color show, let your cause show is so important. But people have missions right now. They're motivated. So definitely embracing that.
And if there's anything I could jump into just to say some advice for the not-for-profit, it would be to say, quantify what you can and present it to your donors versus going after the deep pockets of the corporations, because I think their budgets are going to stay the same. But, like in the case of, with our matching gift, we could say to donate $125 and ITW matches it by 3, that will feed a family of 8 for a month. To donate $250 and ITW will match it by 3, that will pay for somebody's rent. In the animal welfare space, which is huge for us, just being able to quantify what does it take to feed the animals, for a day, for a week, and so forth. And people will generously step up and do that. And that's, for us, the largest spend that we give is actually through our matching gift, and there is no cap. So somebody could donate $5,000, which we have a lot of people who do, and they match it by 3, so that's $20,000. So anything a not-for-profit during this time can do to quantify the need, so that the donor feels a line of sight, to where their funding is going during this pandemic, and can feel an ROI at the end of it. That's the beauty right now in the space of matching gifts.
So one of the challenges, I think, and this is Live Art, we saw about 200 contracts drop off in early March. We obviously connecting with those clients and talking with them about where their event is going, how their fundraising is progressing over an annual period. And what we're hearing, and Meggan and I actually had this conversation, was making those connections, those corporate connections, is really hard if you don't have that board of business owners. I mean, I had a conversation with a nonprofit that we're hopefully going to help move some mountains for, where they had 2 people in their office because their volunteer base is completely cut off. And they're struggling and they're scared. And so I'd love for all of you to weigh in, Meggan, especially you, because we've talked about that struggle. We've talked about how hard those relationships were for you to build and to find. And if any of you could give any insights for our nonprofits that are watching in terms of ways in which they can broaden those opportunities and make stronger connections in the business community.
Dayna, Meggan, while you think about that, there's a point I didn't want us to lose, and this was when Brandon was talking, that for many of these kind of virtual events right now, your reach has really been expanded. So you've gone from a live event of 200 people to now you're reaching 1,500 people, something like that. And what's important to both us on the panel, but I think the people who are watching this, event specialists, event managers and such, is that it's helping those charities or the corporates and such realize that for that virtual event, the event specialists, event planners needed just as much, if not more, because while you don't have to worry about the space and the food and all that, you've got to, this reaching out to people is huge. And we found in probably like the last 5 events that we've worked with where they were virtual and they were using some of the GiveSmart and such like that, 4 out of 5 of those netted more than they did in the prior year. Mm-hmm. They also had some event help. The one that mm-hmm. didn't tried to do it on their own, and unfortunately it came across not as well. Not necessarily professional, they're all coming across professional, but it didn't come across as authentic. And then people, the cause, as Rosemary said, didn't come across and such. So that's what your event specialist, event planner, so we get those calls. People come to us and we know we're beyond our skis on that one. Our job is to help when they're asking those questions, is get them connected with the Monikas and the Daynas and other people like that. So I didn't want to lose sight of that because it's so important right now.
Thanks. It really speaks to what we're talking about today, because it is that the bridge where oftentimes your event planner on the nonprofit side can connect you with their corporate clients, or at least has your mission in mind when they're fielding other phone calls for other events to say, hey, Bravehearts has this amazing event and there's a connect here. So let's get you 2 introduced. So I think, thank you, Dave, for circling back to that, because I think that is exactly what we're trying to exemplify today. Meggan, I want to hear about your corporate connect.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to piggyback off of what Dave said, just to give you an example from those of us that are boots on the ground, we were blessed to have Betty White come to Bravehearts 3 years in a row. And nobody's better than Betty, right? And she's awesome. And we've, had these amazing fundraisers with her. But much to Dave's point, the room still has, so many seats. There's so much overhead in serving a dinner. There's so much logistics, people that buy tickets and don't show and all that sort of thing. And then, we decided at the end of April, we had 2 weeks and we decided we wanted to have a May Day virtual event. We had 2 weeks to plan it, Dave. We stayed south. Our overhead costs were about $8K and we raised over $100,000. Pivoted really fast, got really creative with, what we were going to do. But the best thing about the event of all was the fact that not only did we have a captive audience, we had a larger audience. We did it on multiple platforms. We reached over 1,000 people instead of having just 200 people typically in the room at a fundraiser or a gala, which was awesome. But I felt we were really able to really drill down our message, our mission, and really let our vets speak, our families speak about how much, Bravehearts had impacted, changed their lives. And it really resonated, much to Rosemary's point, the return of investment for those people wanting to give. It was tangible. Even though it was through a screen, people connected and they loved it. And I love the idea that it's one thing to ask for money, but for me, I want more people to understand our mission and to become more ambassadors for us. I want it to resonate, and it's not just about, a corporation giving us money. It's also about what can Bravehearts do for that corporation. We've been blessed here recently in the last few months to be working really hard to tie in with military affinity groups within major corporations. And the question that I like to ask is when, instead of us being a nonprofit saying, how can you help us, but how can we help you? How can we help your corporation? How can we serve the veterans who are employees at your corporation who are struggling with PTSD and all the other diagnoses that go with serving our country? That's what we do at Bravehearts. We serve veterans for no cost, and I'm looking for an exchange. I'm looking for partners when I'm going looking to work with corporations. It's not just about the check. There has to be an investment, a two-way road in this relationship, I think, for it to have any longevity. Otherwise, it's just, a swipe right or whatever that Tinder, all that stuff is. You know what I mean? I don't want that. I want a long-term relationship with a donor. I think that's what we need to remember as running organizations. And those of us that really want to have our organizations continue into perpetuity, to have sustainability, which is what our community is hungry for. If we close doors, there's all those thousands of people not getting the services that they need. And it's really important that you not only work hard to connect, but to hold on to those relationships. And it has to be a two-way street, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that, Meggan. And I from the event planning side of things, I've been a connector all my life, and I love learning about organizations myself and then being able to make those connections. I was just talking to a client who was lucky enough to swing in their gala end of February, right before COVID hit. God bless the fact that everybody came out safe, but they're now, they have a little bit of time on their hands as they're planning for something that is going to be happening in March of next year. What that looks like, we don't know. Is it going to be a hybrid, a little bit live, a little bit virtual? They know for a fact it's not going to be 100% live. But this happens to be a music school, a lovely music school. And think about all the children that are out there that, schools have not been, they've canceled music classes, but now they don't even have school where they can share and do this. So on a different perspective, there are association schools that have that arts and entertainment factor too. And we were just chatting the other day thinking, well, how do we crack the corporate code, which is what we're talking about here, is making those corporate connections. But how do you crack the code? Because this is a smaller, the People's Music School, lovely. They've got, as you mentioned, in different zip codes that are struggling to find after-school programs and making difference. They've played for the Obama Foundation, but they're still a very small knit group. How do they get into these corporations? And we started talking about, this is the day and age where everything is virtual. You can have a lunchtime concert. You can have a happy hour sing-along, whether it's live streamed or recorded. How about inviting these children into your home? You're getting a warm fuzzy. You're introducing them. So again, therein is spreading that mission. As we were laughing about it before, Meggan, we were hoping to see a pony, but that's going to come again fun too, you know,
We
babies,
can help
puppies,
you with
ponies.
that. Don't worry about that's done. We can make
I
that
mean,
happen.
I'm getting a warm fuzzy just thinking about it. But, you know, I mean, it gets me thinking, again, as that event planner who loves to make those connections is, all right, well, who have I talked with in the past that would really benefit from working with an organization like yours? You know, I think that has been one of the things that we've tried to do. And Dayna and I have worked together for the past year or so. And, you know, even that comes into play as we are talking to organizations on the Go Live front, you know, to say, all right, what is your social responsibility angle? Every corporation has it, or it's a multitude, as ITW mentioned. You know, how do we bring that to fruition, tie that in somehow to the next corporate meeting or annual meeting or conference? And I think that everybody has a heart. It's just a matter of finding that piece of your heart that you're looking to expand upon and back a cause with that. So you're right. It could be in kind. It could be a simple text to give, or it could be, you know, bidding on that special auction item that you know you're going to enjoy, that experiential that we all talk about, but you know also know that you're going to be supporting somebody. So that's my challenge, and what I challenge all the other event planners that are out there, meeting planners, concierge in your companies or in the residential buildings. You know, I challenge you to find an organization or a multitude of them. Find once a month and find a way to tie it into the programming that you have in place.
And Monika, we've had a number of client calls together and have been surprised that you ask that question for big events and they don't have that plan. And it's a eureka moment of, oh, we should do that. So I think as a community of event planners and vendors, as they're talking with their corporate clients, can make that a part of the conversation from the get-go, then we are going to be a wave of change as a community. I want to touch upon some of the things that I would say my silver lining from COVID has definitely been the relationship, the strengthening of the community of vendors and event planners around me that I've had so many amazing conversations with, and that we've been able to put on our creative hats and really think outside the box on behalf of our clients in order to come up with unique offerings that raise money or kind of you know, help us with that giving fatigue or the virtual fatigue that we all know we're going to start to see. We initiated our wine glass program, which I know some of the folks who registered for a team-up for the summit did receive. And we use that as a fundraising tool where our nonprofit partners will resell those kits for a paint and sip experience, or as a means to augment a virtual wine tasting. And that has been really rewarding for us to work together. And I'd love to hear some, because obviously event planners and those of us in the event industry are so creative. I want to give you all a chance to talk about what you've been doing on that front, or what you've seen or experienced that you think would be valuable to share with everyone. Monika, jump in, because I see you right here.
Well, you know, I think people have had to pivot, whether it was, you know, whether it's in event planners, production companies, floral design. I've seen some really, even catering, I've seen some amazing kits come to fruition. I'll just call it a kit, because it involved in that is everything from, I've seen or heard about, you know, a party in a box, or something that is reminiscent of the fun times, and having old, you know, gifts from, you know, when you were a kid, not gifts, but toys as a kid, and like the old time candies and that sort of a thing, to just a, you know, the mixology kit, to be able to kind of create your own, alcohol not included, or even a cooking kit. And I think that, you know, everybody gets bills. Some of us go electronically now, but how wonderful it is to receive a kit and to have that as an add-on to an event that, you know, you can be enjoying before, during, after a virtual event. You know, it's all about keeping people engaged. So people have a certain bandwidth too, that they're going to be staring at a screen, but if you can continue to keep them engaged, whether it's with entertainment, music, live auction, a trivia session, or like these hand-on kits, they're great. You know, I'll throw a couple names out there. Kehoe has these party kits. You've got Crepes Latte did this whole connection box. We are doing them with Go Live and with live art tied in together, whether it is the painting a glass or making a candle or creating a boozy cocktail. So I think that we've seen this. I think it's going to be continued, and I think that it can be added on so very easily for an added fundraising benefit for these organizations. You do a little bit of a markup, you get that back, and everybody's happy.
And I guess I'd add on, it's both the what and the how. So what we're seeing is when you think about virtual, it's and. At some point, people are doing more live events and they're doing virtual. We're seeing some of the more progressive groups thinking about it as a year-long journey and not just an event. And their event planners are asking them about that because what they want to do is they want to make it easy for an expanded group of followers to give support and to give money. And as Rosemary said, you want to make it tangible. So it could be using GiveSmart for an online auction, but you can also later on do a text to give around the holidays, or you use that Giving Tuesday, but you still want to have a golf outing because that gets a certain group of people who aren't doing these other things. Or we've had some groups do a bags tournament or cornhole tournament in a safe environment. And some are reaching another generation and just doing a GoFundMe page, but it's because it's something very tangible that it's tied to. So it's looking at all of that and looking at how can you expand your message. In doing that, you expand your donor base, and then think of the different types of events that make it easy for them to give and to support.
Yeah, Dave, that's a great point. We're seeing more often now than ever, probably ever before, organizations that are thinking beyond that one big gala. And I mentioned virtual bartender earlier, but there's a multitude of examples. We're seeing a lot of these virtual competitions. So Thursday, we're talking about a virtual dance competition that a school here in Illinois did. I did not participate for many reasons, but they had a blast, and they actually reached out to us afterwards after how successful it was, because these types of things are engaging. You're getting people who are just sitting like we are, participating in the actual event and in the actual campaign, but it's engaging donors who want to support you in some way. There's a fundraising game called Heads or Tails. I'm sure, Monika, you're very familiar with Heads or Tails. Dave, you're shaking your head. Not a foreign concept, right? But they made it virtual with videos. And they had a guy actually build a sailboat in his bathtub, and he flipped a coin in his bathtub because they were a sailing organization. He wanted to show his support for sailing. So it's that creativity of tying your cause to whatever you can, but also having some fun with it and allowing people to show their fun side. It's not all, okay, we have this really serious message to get across, but it's also, we're home, we have the kids here, I have a 6-month-old screaming in the background. Like that's what all of us are trying to do. So just keep thinking of different ways to, have some competitions, engage the actual audience rather than talking to, it's talking with.
Can I just jump in just 2 seconds? You mentioned kids, and Dayna and I have worked together for a while, and has these amazing kids programs. So what we were also in every conversation, that I've had, that Dayna's had with some of these nonprofits, is like, you're not just talking about the one person, the 2 people that attend that gala, you're talking about a family. And these days we are living, working, schooling from home, that there are ways to tie in family programming as well. And I encourage everybody to check out Live Art. They have lots of magicians, music, and even coloring kits that can be sent out to kids beforehand. Tie in some amazing, take and bake cookies from one of the chefs that I've been working with, and you've got an event that a family can enjoy during the day, and you have an evening event too. So I think that's something to take a look at as well. And as Meggan had mentioned too, you've got all different age groups. So I encourage everybody to also not just look at your typical who would attend a gala, but think about their extended family even, and being able to gather together to do some things outside of that main fundraising event.
That's a great point. I do not want to order a food kit and make a second dinner for my kids in one evening. So Bring on the chicken fingers. That's all I got to say. So I'm really glad that we're ending today on an up note. I know that all of us collectively could talk about this for hours and hours because it is our passion. But I do want to really drive home the message to our community that's watching today to be ambassadors for change, to try and initiate a charitable angle in everything that you do, be it a conference, be it a meeting, be it a wedding, be it a birthday party. There are small ways that you can make a large impact. It doesn't have to be reformatting your event as a whole. I liken it to that roundup situation when you're at the grocery store and they ask you to give 5 cents more to bring your total purchase to $10 from $9.95. Our community of nonprofit organizations needs our help. They need us to step up. I know we're struggling as well, but there's nothing better about helping each other. There's nothing like helping out a nonprofit with their mission and achieving their goals. I want to close out today by thanking Atima for giving us the opportunity to have this conversation with you. I want to thank our panelists for your time, your efforts, the outreach that you make and the difference you make in the community around you. And thank you for joining us today. So I want to close. I'll come back to that. Let me forward. Okay. As we close out, I would love for our panelists to share a final takeaway thought. I'm going to start with you, Meggan.
Wow, I'm just so honored to be with this and to have all these good hearts pointed in the right direction. It's truly humbling. I guess, to echo what you just said, Dayna, be creative, be bold, be brave. When we wanted to do our first virtual event, a lot of people were like, you're going to do what? And it's like, you have to do something right now. It is not a time to, dawdle and think about it. You just have to dive in. And my other piece would be when you are, if you are going after corporations or you are trying to build relationships with vendors, I think from a nonprofit standpoint, it's really easy for us to ask, I need this. I think we need to take time to listen to what the corporation needs, to what the vendor needs. I think it has to be, again, a mutual relationship in order for it to be successful and for it for both parties to be invested. I think that's the way to go about it. It should be something that both parties, both sides can benefit and make the world a better place, which is why we're all here,
Thanks, Meggan. Rosemary, thanks for joining us today.
Sure, thank you. It's been an honor to participate in this, and I've certainly learned a lot as well. So I guess, my parting advice would be, from a corporate perspective, all of us are very connected, and we network constantly with one another, and particularly have during this pandemic, to the point where we were having weekly phone calls to better understand what each other was doing. Because when it comes to this type of role, within the corporation, there is no competitive intelligence. And the more that we share with one another, the more each other does. And we do it in a much more educated format and do it more collaboratively, where we'll partner with other organizations to do the same. What I would say to the not-for-profit world looking at new corporate funding, I would really encourage you to look at, how does the organization give? So coming to ITW to ask for a small grant like $5,000, you're better off engaging individuals who are leveraging their matching gift program where they're getting involved with you. Because we also have a volunteer program where our employees can give up to 100 hours and we match it by $10 an hour. So, to engage our employees, and so forth is a great way to get into an organization and begin a partnership, by engaging the employees. I think a lot of companies are faced with, for those of us who've been able to maintain our budgets, it's been great. Other organizations have had to cut back, but I don't see a lot of new money out there organizations increasing their budgets significantly. I think they're just looking to make the right investments for the right reasons. So I think from a not-for-profit perspective, I would just encourage you, all the advice these great people gave with, creative and bold ways and innovative ways to, pivot during this time. I think to Dave's point, looking at the long run and not just a single event, and how do you build upon it. There's just, and again, within your own world, there's a lot of networking as well.
That's a great segue to Dave Wille. Thank you, Rosemary. I oftentimes call Dave my nonprofit superhero because any client that works with him, he saves the day. So Dave, thanks for being here.
Sure. So it's fun to be with this crowd. Thank you. I mean, this panel's been outstanding. But in terms of advice to those people who will be watching this, for whether you're a nonprofit, whether you're an event planner, it's the be bold, it's try something, because now's the time in this COVID time that you get leeway from. You can try something. If it doesn't quite work, it's still okay. And as you can see, I speak with my hand, think outside the box. I feel like stuck in here, so I'm encouraging others to do that. For any nonprofits, to me, the biggest thing is to communicate. If you're gonna cancel, postpone, because it's just, you can then use that time to still communicate your message and use it to expand the awareness. Because that's what you kind of want and need to do now. And if you're going to do an event, communicate safety. We've done a whole lot of golf events recently, and what we found is there's some people there who really think there's not a pandemic going on now, but it doesn't matter. If there's one or two people that come to the event and are concerned about safety, if you haven't communicated to them, you haven't done your job. So communicate cause, communicate safety.
That's great words of advice, Dave. Monika?
So yes, of course, for those event planners out there, I would say, play the matchmaker. Find out from your client, the board, if there are passion projects that they have and or your corporation, that social arm of responsibility. It's really a win-win. They'll be exercising that social responsibility angle, and the foundation, the association, the nonprofit will benefit from that. And for nonprofits, it's all about engagement. Now's the time to not wait in talking to sponsors, but to continue to give a touch point, even though it's not physical. Are there ways to showcase them throughout the year in these little mini events, or it's really just about keeping them engaged as well as the volunteers. On the side of volunteering and corporations, again, as you mentioned, we're all connectors here. And, if we can find those matches, that if you do benefit, show an employee learn about a new association, and they really take to it, then they might be the next volunteer when volunteering is needed once again, because that's really what a lot of these organizations need as well. It really is the success story for any nonprofit, is a strong group of volunteers that all are kind of stranded right now. So continue to educate, continue to engage, and continue to excite people about being a part of some of these nonprofits, and in the end, everybody will benefit.
That's great advice. Brandon, thanks for being here today.
For sure. Thank you for having me. And I would just say, for nonprofits out there looking to kind of solve for all of our challenges, bridge this gap that we're trying to figure out here is, Dave says, think outside of the box. I say think outside of the room, because that's what we're calling it with ours, but it's the same idea, right? It's try a few different things, look at your donor base, and try to make sure you're engaging everyone from like Monika says, the kids that are going to be in the room anyways, to the seniors in your group, and make sure that you're incorporating a message and an opportunity for giving for everyone. We've found that 4 to 10 times a year, a donor wants to give to an organization, and we've done enough research to see that that is absolutely the case. So don't do one thing once, do several things and mix it up. We talk a lot about managing more and dealing with all the different things you're adding onto your plate. So as you're spinning all the plates on your fingers, think about different ways to make those easier by incorporating those volunteers that maybe are just trying to find something to keep themselves busy, and they can help with a small campaign, or they can do an outreach, or they can become a champion for your cause. So think about those different ways you can maximize your availability, because we all are definitely wearing many different hats, or spinning many different plates, and whatever other analogy we can come up with in the next 5 minutes. It's all these different things that we have going on, and really just trying to make sure that you're getting your message out there using video, using these different things that are much more effective today, and trusting the vendors. You know, reaching out to someone like Dave, who's got 25 years of experience doing this, is valuable. And we're here to help with the amount of resources that we have. And Monika is running all these different events, and Rosemary's given all this great advice, and Meggan's a counterpart in the space. We all are looking to share this information. Reach out and don't be afraid to ask. We get, after every webinar, I get an email of, from someone with like 5 questions, and they get a response from me, and I always get, oh my God, I didn't expect a response. And I'm like, we're here to do exactly this. So make sure that you take advantage of that opportunity to learn. And I'll kind of wrap it up there, because I think that kind of sums it up. But I think there's a lot of good things just from what we talked about today, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
We hope that we have provided some thought-provoking ideas on how you can do tremendous good by building a bridge between the non-for-profit community and the corporate community. We hope you will be inspired to be an ambassador of change and help us add charity to the conversation. Together, we can change the culture and initiate a movement where every event, be it a corporate meeting, a wedding, a social gathering, or a country club member event, can incorporate a charitable giving element that creates impact. Thank you. Stay safe, everyone. I'm Dayna Mallow with Live Art International. Thank you for joining us today.